So our final story of the day: libraries offer up 1 million books for AI training.
Yeah.
Jonathan?
So major libraries, including Harvard University, Boston Public Library, and Oxford University's Bodleian Library, I have no idea if I said that right, are sharing millions of public domain works, historical newspapers, dissertations, with AI developers to train models ethically. Supported by Microsoft and OpenAI. These diverse, copyright-free datasets aim to enhance AI's language and cultural understanding. There are concerns about outdated or biased content in historical texts. This highlights the need for careful curation to prevent... Rewrite the history before we give it to the robots, because we don't want it to... All that public domain stuff is just problematic.
If you let the bots read Thomas Aquinas, they might convert to Catholicism.
Oh
We can't have this.
We have to rewrite this stuff, guys. No, don't let them read that. What are we doing?
So this is going to be very interesting, because as the AIs get access to more public domain works, because the big canon they've already had for a long time. So the Gutenberg project is in every single training data set.
Yeah.
It's one of the Gutenberg project and Wikipedia are like the first two things that you add to a data set if you're trying to train up an AI, because there's no issues legally and it's very accessible. But there's a lot of obscure books that are not in the Gutenberg collection because nobody cares. Like tax records from the 1700s.
Sure.
But an AI could answer some really interesting questions for an author who's writing a book that takes place in the 1700s if it has access to all of the tax records. Like suddenly that's like, actually, you learn a lot about society following those tax records and the property rights and the ownership, and that gets really interesting. And it doesn't make sense for you as a novelist to go fly to England, find the one copy of the tax records from 1760 and go to, read the whole thing to find that one reference on page 60 that's got that one piece of information that would make your book a little bit better. But if AI can do it like that and for free, suddenly your book can really get elevated.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be good for authors. It'll be interesting to see what they do to try to censor our ancestors' voices so they don't influence the future any more than they have to. But they're setting themselves up for failure, because the whole point of adding these old books to the data set is to train the new models on the old stuff.
Yeah.
And so if you don't want it to learn from our ancestors, from the wisdom of the ancients, then maybe you don't include this information. The other thing I think is very interesting is historical newspapers are really helpful. So right now, if you're writing a story that takes place in 1860s New York and New York City, and you want to describe the weather, you don't really have a good way of knowing what the weather was in 1860 New York City. But if you had an AI that has read all of the newspapers that took place in 1860, and it's like, oh, June, it's a famously hot day on June 27th, suddenly your book can get really interesting historically. And I'm excited about this. It's going to cost a lot of money, but the AI companies have it, and I think this is a good thing.
Well, there's another issue, and so I've been going through this because I've been writing a very POV centric book, Semper Die, and it's Marine centric. It means I have to use the language from the POV of a Marine at all times. So I have to say what he would say. I can't use more explanatory stuff that a civilian would understand because I'm in the POV of a Marine. The thing you can do here is if you wanted to describe the weather in the 1860s, you describe it the way an 1860s weatherman would do in the paper, because all you would put into the AI model would be exclude all content after 1875 and just use material that you have before 1875, and that will give you the language and the adjective choice, adverb choice, how much of it there is, because, editors have been crazy about this for hundreds of years. How wordy is it? How long should a weather report be? How much fidelity does that report have in the eyes of the people that read it? And so just being able to limit yourself to those materials, especially if you're writing historical fiction and you need to write from the POV and sound authentic, you can absolutely do that by using AI as a research tool. Hey, go pull me these manuscripts. Don't pull any other ones. And let's see what the word choice looks like.
Matthew says, when Mark Twain wrote this book on Saint Joan of Arc, and he traveled to Paris and learned French so he could read the court cases in the original language. Now he could have just used TwainBot. So that's kind of funny. Although he couldn't have used TwainBot until he had written the book, because TwainBot is only trained on what Mark Twain has already done. So it's been a Spaceballs watching the movie that they're in kind of situation where they get to the end and now it's in real time. But yeah, that is. So search engines for the last 30 years were how we would try to find that kind of information. And search engines aren't good at surfacing that sort of information. And this is where AIs are much superior. So for the needle in the haystack, the contextual information, and weather was just the first thing that came to mind. But let's say you're trying to do vernacular, you're trying to use turns of phrase, you're trying to describe what a room looks like. One of the really valuable things about these old newspapers is not actually the articles, it's the advertisements. Because the advertisements in the papers give you a kind of a visual understanding of the items in a house. Because before an item is in a house, it's in an advertisement in a magazine or a newspaper. Until you go far enough back, perhaps less that way as more things are handcrafted. So it's a really useful tool.
Buy our muffins now with extra mercury added.
Uranium-free toothpaste.
What?
Coca-Cola now with less Coke. The patent Earl Paggerty's patent medicine.
Exactly.
Concoction.
8 essential vitamins and minerals that you need, like
the best snake oil in the West.